60 years ago, a single climb could make history. But while Everest welcomes thousands, there are peaks so lethal, forbidden, or unstable that they have allowed only one successful ascent, ever. The reasons are not just about bravery or skill. They reveal hidden dangers, political walls, and the brutal truth about what the human body cannot survive. So, why did these mountains surrender only once? And what changed, turning feats of conquest into warnings we cannot ignore? In the summer of 1865, a young Englishman named Edward Whymper stood atop the Matterhorn, claiming victory for Britain in a race that had transfixed Europe. The climb cost 4 lives on the descent, but for Whymper and his sponsors, the summit meant something greater than personal achievement. These early ascents were fueled by national pride and imperial rivalry, with governments underwriting expeditions as proof of progress and power. By the 1920s, the Himalaya became the next frontier. The British, eager to restore their stature after World War I, turned to Mount Everest. George Mallory, the era's most driven climber, wrote that he climbed because it is there, but his letters reveal a deeper obsession with glory and legacy. In 1924, Mallory and Andrew Irvine vanished high on Everest's northeast ridge, last glimpsed at 8,600 meters. Their disappearance left a question hanging in the thin air. How far should ambition reach when the mountain itself offers no margin for error? By the 1950s, the definition of achievement in the mountains had changed. Hermann Buell, an Austrian climber, set a new standard on Nanga Parbat in 1953. He reached the summit alone, without supplemental oxygen, and survived a night standing on a narrow ledge above 8,000 meters, hallucinating from exhaustion and lack of air. Buell's solo tactics defied the siege-style expeditions of the past, and they pushed the idea that individual audacity could overcome even the harshest conditions. In the decades that followed, the pursuit of style became a contest of national pride and personal risk. Jerzy Kukuczka, climbing out of communist Poland, finished all 14 8,000-meter peaks between 1979 and 1987, often choosing new, harder routes and winter ascents. He climbed with minimal gear, often in brutal weather, driven by both personal ambition and the weight of Cold War rivalry. For climbers like Buell and Kukuczka, risk was not a byproduct, it was the measure of greatness. A place on Everest's south side costs between $40,000 and $100,000, yet the price buys no guarantee. By 2024, more than 6,600 people have reached the summit, many through guided expeditions that rely on an invisible workforce. Sherpa teams fix ropes and carry oxygen, often risking their lives to support clients with little high-altitude experience. On busy days, over 200 climbers can crowd the upper ridge, forming bottlenecks in the death zone. The system's fragility was exposed in May 1996, when 8 people died in a single storm. Delays from traffic jams and the pressure to reach the top overrode basic safety, trapping guides and clients high on the mountain as conditions collapsed. The commercial model, designed to make the summit accessible, also multiplied the consequences of failure. When the margin for error narrows, one mistake or a sudden weather change can turn a guided climb into a mass casualty event. Above 8,000 meters, the human body cannot truly adapt. It only deteriorates. High-altitude physician Peter Hackett describes the death zone as a place where every hour erodes judgment, coordination, and organ function. Climbers face not just exhaustion, but hallucinations and confusion, symptoms of the brain swelling with fluid known as high-altitude cerebral edema. Lungs can drown from within as high-altitude pulmonary edema fills airways with fluid, often without warning. More than half of non-accident deaths above 7,000 meters are linked to these conditions. Rescue is rarely an option. Decision-making grows slower just as the margin for error disappears. Debate over risk sharpens in this environment. Anatoly Bukreev, who guided on Everest without supplemental oxygen, defended his approach by arguing that self-reliance is key when systems fail. In 2019, 3 elite alpinists, David Lama, Hans-Jörg Auer, and Jess Roskelley, were killed by a natural avalanche on Howes Peak. Their skill could not outpace the randomness of hazard. For some, these events prove that danger is essential to the pursuit. Others see a line crossed, where risk becomes a lottery and ethics demand restraint. In August 2024, a small team set their sights on Muchu Chish, a peak of 7,452 meters in the Karakoram that had turned back every previous attempt. For 3 days, storms battered their high camp, threatening to end the climb before it began. Then a sudden break in the weather opened a narrow window, just 48 hours of clear skies and stable snow. The climbers moved quickly, threading through collapsing seracs and over steep, exposed ridges. By the afternoon of the final day, they reached the summit, knowing that another delay would have sealed them in by avalanche or storm. As of now, no team has repeated their route. Some mountains are closed by decree, not by difficulty. In Bautan, all peaks above 6,000 meters are off-limits, protected as sacred ground. Elsewhere, warming twice as fast as the global average is erasing once stable ice and turning classic routes into hazards. Legal bans and a shifting climate now decide which summits remain forever untouched or briefly possible, then lost. Some summits resist us, not from lack of will, but because the world itself is shifting. As climate and conflict